club for a special dinner event featuring a live conversation with Nancy Nelson interviewing Matt, plus heartfelt video tributes. Get your tickets now at am950radio.com. That's am950radio.com.
Portions of the following program may be pre-recorded.
Broadcasting live from the studios of AM 950 KTNF, the progressive voice of Minnesota, and simulcasting on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/@TheGailey Show. Welcome to The Gailey Show. I am your host, John Parker. In studio with me, executive producer Jim Pounds.
Hey, all.
And in the control room today, Adam. What's up, Adam?
Hello, everybody.
How are you holding up?
Holding up pretty well. Still got a lot to do, but holding up pretty well.
I feel that's my new how are you now. I'm just asking everybody, how are you holding up? Because it is a lot to deal with. And we're going to deal with a lot today. Our call-in number, 952-946-6205, 952-946-6205. How are you holding up, AM 950 radio listeners? We're always looking for recommendations of how to keep our minds sane here. Speaking of sanity, thank goodness we're going to have White House correspondent for the Washington Blade, Christopher Kane, in the second half of the hour. His new reporting from the White House and national coverage here. Really interesting profile of Representative Garcia, who had not been on my radar until I read Christopher's reporting. So looking forward to talking with him. First, though, I want to tell folks, particularly to our New York listeners, we, obviously we're based here in Minneapolis, St. Paul, but, through the magic of streaming, we have folks listening all across the country and maybe the globe. But we are going to be in New York. Jim and I are going to be in New York on April 10th. We are doing a live version of the podcast that we also produce and host. This queer book saved my life. We will be partnering with Brooklyn Public Library. Our guests will be Mia Araya Sang and Chloe Caldwell. Previous guests on the podcast, but their story was so intense and epic that we barely even scratched the surface in the episode with them on This Queer Book Saved My Life. So Mia will be talking about how Chloe's novella, Women, had life-saving impacts for her. But what's amazing about their story, first of all, is how there's just a little bit of internet stalking, because the book was so important to Mia that she started just championing it. This was a while back on Twitter, when Twitter hadn't become the cesspool that it is now. And she started just tweeting about it all the time, and then started sort of internet stalking Chloe, like, hey, where is she going to be doing a book reading today? And where is she going? And so she would go to the book readings and ask her to sign, the copies of her own, book or new books that Chloe was coming out with. And this eventually led to Mia taking writing classes from Chloe, and then they became like friends. And then there was a re-release of Women, and Mia was involved with that and getting the publicity and even helping with the copy editing of it. And then they became friends, but then Chloe had a divorce that she was going through, a relationship that she was going through, and Mia was there for her and had this life-saving role in Chloe's life. So it's just this amazing, full circle moment. So Mia's going to be reading from her new book that came out this year, Fragments of Wasted Devotion. They'll both be reading from Women, which is going to be great to have both of them reading from the text itself. And then Chloe's also going to read from her upcoming book, Trying. So New Yorkers, if you're in the area, or if you're, in Jersey, Connecticut, Boston, DC, want to come up, it'll be Thursday, April 10th at 6 p.m. Yes. Yeah, 6 to 7:30. 6 to 7:30 at the Brooklyn Public Library, the DeKalb branch. Yes. DeKalb,
I think, and it's on Bushwick Avenue.
You can find more information at our website, thisqueerbook.com. We hope to see you there.
Well, I was going to say, I think they will have books on sale.
Hive Mind Books is the book partner. Yep. And so they are going to have not only the books that we're going to be reading from on stage, that I will also be reading an essay, by the way. original essay for the evening.
Mhm.
Mini essay. But yeah, Hive Mind Books is going to be there selling books. Not only Chloe and Mia's, but books from the podcast as well will be on
Right.
hand. Brooklyn Public Library will have a book display as well. And then there is an after party at the Bush,
Mm.
which is a lesbian bar, which I
Wow.
look forward to having fun there.
Yes.
NA fun, since NA fun for me.
Yeah.
But anyway, so yeah, you can find more information on our website, thesquarebook.com. Adam, can you cue up our breaking news music?
This is so exciting.
Breaking news. AP News has called a Pennsylvania state Senate seat for a Democrat. One upset the Republican. A Democrat has not represented this district in guess how many years?
More than 4.
Okay, yeah, much more than 4. 136 years.
Wow, that's
Yes, the state was carried by a huge percentage point by Trump in last November, and now Democrat James Andrew Malone narrowly won the race to represent this district, and it is Associated Press called it Wednesday, so today. After receiving information from county officials that there were fewer ballots left to be counted than in the margin of the race. Malone is currently the mayor of East Petersburg, which is, population 4,500. And it's I'm trying to find and pull the actual. Let's see here. A Democratic flip of the district is a major upset, according to AP News. Trump won the district by 15 percentage points last November. The last time a Democrat represented was in 1889, and now gives the GOP control of the state Senate to 27-23 advantage. But
I think the same thing's going to be happening in Florida 1 and Florida 6. And I'm going to just say that I think if people are not happy with what's going on, regardless of your party, or if you don't usually vote, or if you're usually an independent, or you're a Republican and you do not like what's happening in your name, Florida 1 and 6 is an opportunity to express that dissatisfaction by voting for the Democrat, and it's going to get some attention, trust me.
Well, it's the second upset. So there was a special election in Iowa earlier this year where Trump won the district, and then a Democrat unseated the Republican in there, and so this is the second race. There was a series of special elections in February. We were watching those to see if there would be any flips, and there wasn't. So this is very.
And these are small districts. They're not congressional districts. They're state legislative districts, so they're quite a bit smaller than a U.S. House district, but like Florida 1 and Florida 6. But if the sentiment is growing, if the ember of dissatisfaction is as hot as I think it is, you're going to see people vote against their party just to say, "Hey, back off, Musk, etc." I think that's the opportunity, and you're not going to get much opportunity with this guy. He doesn't listen to anybody, but that will be a surprise to them, an unhappy surprise.
I'm trying to find. I had it and then I lost it. Well, the margin was a very tight margin that he won by. When I was last looking at last night, it was 50-49.
Yeah.
So it was a very close race, but clearly an upset. And that, I mean, speaking of the Florida elections next week, there are 3 really critical elections happening on April 1st. The first is our next door neighbor here in Minnesota, Wisconsin. The marquee race is for the Supreme Court. The state Supreme Court, rather. Yes, thank you. The control of it will be decided. Currently, it is a liberal majority. It's only been a liberal majority for 2 years. And if the conservative wins, it will go back to being controlled by the conservatives, and the Republicans will make hay out of that. So it's crucial that Democrats get out. And if you're in Minnesota or Illinois, help get out the vote. Call, send letters. It's still not too late to donate. Go knock on doors. If you go to wisdems, wisdems.com.org, you can find ways to help get out the vote. But Susan Crawford is our editorial, if you will, our endorsed candidate for the Wisconsin Supreme Court for all of the LGBTQ issues, but also the importance of maps. Wisconsin's electoral maps were finally ungerrymandered. A little. It's more competitive. It could have been better, but here we are. And now we're going to be looking at the federal maps.
Yep.
And the control of, if the Republicans are in control, they are going to gerrymander those maps even more and get rid of Democratic districts. So it's really important that the court remain a liberal court so that those maps can be ungerrymandered, and so that Wisconsin can finally begin to have a government that is reflective of what the voting population is doing.
Right. I mean, that's been the joke in the United States, is that we're a 50-50 state. And I live in Wisconsin. And so we're 50-50 in almost every election, no matter who wins. And in our state House delegation, there are 6 Republicans and 2 Democrats. We are among the most gerrymandered and ridiculously gerrymandered, embarrassingly gerrymandered states in the country, because a 50-50 should be closer to 50-50, not 6-2.
You would hope.
Think.
there have been times where the vote if you look at the total vote for the assembly, it was like 60% of the vote, if you looked at all of it, was for Democrats, but they were only getting like 30 to 40% of the actual seats in the assembly.
That's why, regardless of what the United States Supreme Court says, gerrymandering is wrong on the basis of fairness, and why those people couldn't figure that out, is beyond me. But I think we know why they can't, or chose not to.
You would, you would think so. Yes, and then in one of the Florida races, the Republicans are freaking out because the Democratic candidate is doing very well, having robust fundraising numbers. And so, both of these seats were with Republicans who were super MAGA and were winning by very good margins. So the idea that these would flip is, low. Yeah. But the fact that a Democrat is getting the money that he's getting seems to be.
Well, I think both of
freaking people
one
out.
Of the districts is in sort of north of Orlando, if you will, and the other is in Pensacola, and they are both, as you say, very conservative. But we're hopeful.
We are hopeful. We're going to have some more news headlines after this break. Stay tuned. Follow us on Blue Sky for more progressive news and analysis. We're at thegaleyshow.org on Blue Sky.
Hey, it's Tom. Minnesotans take pride in protecting their lakes, trees, and natural beauty. And now you have a chance to do even more. The state is committed to 100% renewable energy by 2040. And by switching to all energy solar, you can help make that goal a reality. Solar works in Minnesota year-round. It runs on sunlight, not heat. So even in the winter, you're generating clean energy. And for over 15 years, All Energy Solar has been helping Minnesotans make the move to affordable, renewable power. Now is the time to act. Some federal rebates could disappear with changes in the federal government, so don't wait and miss out. Get with a trusted, award-winning company. All Energy Solar was named Minnesota's best gold winner in 2024 and recognized as a top solar contractor by Solar Power World. The future is renewable. The choice is yours. Stop paying the utility company and start producing your own clean energy with All Energy Solar. Get a free consultation today at allenergysolar.com.
Uptown used to be thriving. Now, too many businesses have closed and people don't feel safe. I'm Lydia Millard, a lifelong Minneapolis resident and a working person who understands that city services must work for the people. I'll tackle crime, create real housing solutions, and bring new life to our business corridors. Let's move forward with new Ward 10 leadership. Caucus for me on April 8th at 7 p.m. More at LydiaMillardWard10.com.
Prepared and paid for by the campaign fund of Lydia Millard, Ward 10.
Hello, everyone. I am Becky McNanton, along with Tara Martini, hosts of Feels Out Loud, brought to you by Becoming Together Therapy and Wellness. This Sunday, tune in as we process through emotional sharing through social media and how this impacts all of us.
And if you have a question about digital wellness, visit our website at www.becomingtogethermn.com. Look for the Feels Out Loud page. We may just share your question on the show, so join us at 9 a.m. to live and share mental health together.
It's no secret that medical care costs are soaring, with nursing home and skilled nursing care costs being some of the highest. You don't have to deplete your savings in order to receive long-term care. At Schroman Law, we work with families to develop and implement strategic planning for medical assistance for long-term care, for assisted living, nursing home care, or home-based care. Contact us today to schedule a free consultation at schromanlaw.com. That's SCHROMEN law.com.
Hi, I'm Philip Anthony, host of the Downright Upright Show, airing right here on AM 950 Radio, Saturdays at 5 p.m. Join me as I dive into captivating conversations with people from all walks of life. As a proud member of the LGBTQ community, I celebrate diversity and beyond with unique stories that make us fantabulous. Please join me every Saturday at 5 p.m. or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Welcome back to the Gailey Show. I am your host, John Parker. Jim Pounds, executive producer, is with me here in the studio. It is 21 minutes past the hour. Our call-in number, 952-946-6205, 952-946-6205. There is a article from the AP that just came out about a case in front of the court. And I'm going to talk about it here because it's an issue, personal issue of mine that is not necessarily LGBTQ related, but a lot of queer folks don't live in cities. They live in rural parts of the country. And so this affects them, but it affects everybody who is living in rural areas. And I think it shows how the Republicans do not care about people who are living in rural areas. And I say that as somebody who's one side of my family, the side that lives on this continent, lives in rural Michigan. And this is something that would affect them. So the Supreme Court today, in oral arguments, 3 hours worth of oral arguments, seems like they are going to preserve a program called the Universal Service Fund. What does the Universal Service Fund do? It is an $8 billion $8 billion program per year that the government spends to subsidize phone and internet services for schools and libraries and folks living in rural areas. Now, I can tell you this. We have a place in Northwest Wisconsin. The internet was terrible there. Terrible. They were making us spend, the company, I'm just going to call it out. The company was Brightspeed. They were charging us $50 a month for internet that was 10 megabytes. Download, 1 megabyte upload. Ridiculous. It's not even considered high-speed internet. For years, I have been, calling people, companies, being like, when are you going to extend service, to our road? When are you going to, when are you coming here? Like trying to see like, oh, you come to here, when, 3 roads over, are you going to come on over? When? And they're all like, yeah, we'll put you on the list and we'll let you know when we come over there. Right. I begged the company Brightspeed, like, when are you going to upgrade these lines? Like every time we have to have you come out here and fix it, because inevitably at least once a year, something would happen to the line. They would need to come out and fix it. And they're all like, yeah, you've got some great stuff here. Like we can easily upgrade this. And I would call them and harass them with emails and be like, hey, when are you going to upgrade? And they never, ever, ever would. Well, finally, I couldn't take it anymore. What?
Well, I was worried about whether you're going to name the company or not. I don't know that you should name the company.
Oh, well.
Do you know what I mean? Should you?
Whatever. What I will say, the whole point of it is it's a local company,
yes,
internet company. And I finally just went to them and I said, please, there's got to be something that you can do. And they said, all right, we can bring our fiber internet line down your road, but it's going to cost X amount of money. we can provide this. Can you find ways of raising the other funds? And I went into my personal savings, and I'm super privileged enough to be able to have done this, but went into my personal savings and said, here, I am going to give you this up front. And then they just give it back to me over 4 years of, so I basically gave them the money. They were able to put in the fiber internet line, and then I get my bill paid for the next 4 years, essentially, until the value of that is paid off. And so for me, when I see that they're trying to get rid of phone and internet service subsidies, it is so frustrating because there is barely anything there to begin with.
What percent of the people who benefit from that program do you suppose voted for their own destruction last November?
Well, most people don't realize that.
Yeah. Well, we're telling you.
Most people, they're like, wait, I didn't vote for this. Yes, you voted for this.
Yes,
this
you
is a
did.
case that was brought forward by conservative advocacy group Consumer Research. The Supreme Court had been batting down cases that they had been bringing forward, but the Fifth U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals, the most conservative right-wing court in the country, said that the Universal Service Fund is unconstitutional, and so now the court is forced to take it up. And Justice Sonia Sotomayor, according to the AP News, said that there are only 2 services that have been identified within this bill, or in the funding rather, so it does not create a hardship to the companies. And the last time a Supreme Court overturned some similar thing was in 1935. So the conservatives were arguing before the court, were like, well, just let Congress do it.
Oh, sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
How's that working out right now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
For a long time, it hasn't been working.
Yeah. They're just going to.
Right.
They're just going to cut the funding or just not do it anyway. And it was weird. I mean, is it weird? I can't figure out Justice Amy Coney Barrett at all. I just get so frustrated that she's even there, because that should not have happened.
No.
But just by whatever. But she was even saying that the solutions that were being put forward, and I'm quoting here from the AP News, responding to it, says, well, this sounds like a meaningless exercise. So I don't know.
Wow.
Every once in a while, she says something that I'm like, huh.
Such clarity from Amy Coney
That
Barrett.
is the take away all the partisan politics of it. And if you just look at the issue, yes, what you're saying is objectively true.
Yes.
When they're not, twisting themselves backwards to, find ways of ruining the country. So,
right. So the story you just told is that a Democrat did something to advocate for himself and to work with a company, a for-profit company, to extend service.
Oh, you're talking about me?
Yeah. To extend service for his property, but he also helped get other neighbors in his rural area, our rural area,
MAGA neighbors,
to get this better service. So we did.
All of our MAGA neighbors now have fiber internet because of the lefty, who used his own personal savings and couldn't take it anymore.
There's a story in there about working together and doing the right thing for the community, and we are demonstrating it.
Lefties?
The lefties are demonstrating it.
Lefties getting involved.
That's right.
So yeah. Something I also want to bring up here very briefly, because we are coming up on a break, and then Christopher Kane will be joining us from the Washington Blade. I guess it's sort of bit. I just want to name. Everyone's talking about the oopsie daisy of, we accidentally included a reporter and we're talking about all of our war plans by text message. Oopsie, sorry, we'll now investigate. It was everyone does it. That's what the USA Today was saying. Oh, everybody's done that, included someone on a group text. Okay, what I haven't heard expressed enough is that now that Russia knows that Pete Hegseth likes to text things, guess whose phone they're going to go after to hack?
There should have been 2 armed guards refusing to allow him into his office.
UK journalists were raked over the coals in court for being able, the paparazzi journalists, from being able to hack into celebrities' phones.
Right.
Now, what do you think Russia is going to be doing here?
Right.
All those phones of all of those administration members now are going to be hacked.
Yep. Well, we found somebody more incompetent than the president. I guess that's what that exercise did.
Yeah. All right. We're going to take a break. When we come back, Christopher Kane from the Washington Blade. Stay tuned.
Hello, Minnesota. This is Tom Hartman, and you can catch me every weekday from 11 to 2 right here on AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota. It's smart radio for smart people.
Think your company's safe? Your staff is working from home, right? As I speak, cyber criminals are mounting attacks across the country. Remember, when we're weakest, cyber criminals attack. Hi, Mark Sommerfeld from Rymark. The Rymark team is guiding our clients through these difficult times. In fact, demand has been so high, we created an easy-to-follow guide. It's yours free. Download our 5 steps to securely work from home now at rymarkit.com or call 651-328-8900 for a no-cost how-to discussion.
From the fire station to the dinner table, I learned that listening matters and people want action. In Ward 9, we support neighbors, uplift small businesses, and make housing more accessible. I'm Marcus Jones, a Minneapolis firefighter and a father. This city raised me. Now I'm stepping up to serve with practical solutions and steady leadership from the ground up. I'm not here to play politics. I'm here to deliver for Ward 9. Visit MarcusJones.com and get involved and attend your local caucus on April 8th.
This advertisement was paid for by Marcus Jones, candidate for Ward 9 of Minneapolis City Council.
Join us April 10 through 12 at the Capital Readiness Summit, where we're bridging the gap between investors, support organizations, and the entrepreneur community. In just 2 days, you'll make connections that could take you years to build. With over 180 degrees of networking power, this is your chance to meet people you've been looking for. But hurry, the summit sells out every year. Register now at www.connectupmn.org. That's connectupmn.org. Follow us on Instagram and LinkedIn for updates and discount codes. If you're an entrepreneur investor, you don't want to miss this event of the year.
Hi, this is Frank Brown of Minuteman Press Uptown with a question for our listeners. How important are business values to you? When you need high-quality digital print, it matters who you work with. You see, Minuteman Uptown is unique. We're one of the only union print shops in Minnesota, providing our team with living wages and benefits. We believe in second chances for justice-impacted individuals who want to contribute to the community, and we are active in local issues. We've been in the streets standing up for racial, social, and economic justice. At Minuteman Uptown, our mission is to connect all communities through technology-driven print solutions. An example of that mission is when I moved Minuteman Uptown to North Minneapolis. We're invested in this local community, and we help small businesses and local organizations throughout the Twin Cities reach their audiences. Reach out to Minuteman Uptown and partner with a printer that shares your values. Call us today at 612-870-0777 or visit us at mpuptown.com. That's mpuptown.com.
With your AM 950 weather, I'm Brett Johnson. Look for partly cloudy skies today with a high near 55. Tonight, a chance of rain with a low around 40. And Thursday, partly sunny with a high around 60. Since 1984, Cafe Latte has been a hotspot for American eats and desserts. Enjoy gourmet salads, sandwiches, and soups with a unique cafeteria-style setup. Don't miss the pizza and wine bar offering gourmet pizzas and over 30 wines by the glass. Explore the bakery for fresh treats. Located off Victoria and Grand, more at cafelatte.com.
AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota.
Coming to you from the studios of AM 950 KTNF, the progressive voice of Minnesota, and streaming live right now on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/@TheGailey Welcome back to The Gailey Show. It is 33 minutes past the hour. I'm your host, John Parker. In studio with me, executive producer Jim Pounds. Since 1969, the Washington Blade is our award-winning newspaper with its distinctive coverage of the LGBTQ community and dubbed the newspaper of record for the queer community. Head to WashingtonBlade.com where you can read their excellent journalism, sign up for their weekly newsletter, and become a member to support critical journalism at a perilous time for the United States. Joining us now is the Blade's White House correspondent, Christopher Kane. Christopher, welcome back to The Gailey Show.
Thank you so much. How are you guys doing?
Well, you were out sick last week. I hope that you're feeling better. We've got lots to talk to you about.
We almost canceled
Thank
last
you.
show because you weren't there. We
Yeah.
just thought, well, maybe we won't do this if Christopher can't do it.
Oh, geez, I'm so sorry. Yeah, I came down very suddenly with like strep throat and then like an upper respiratory thing. So I think I'm past the worst of it, thankfully. So
Good. Good to hear that. Well, because you've got some really interesting reporting that I want to talk to you about, starting with this epic profile of Representative Garcia that you had out, Representative U.S. Rep Robert Garcia out of California, who I wasn't on my radar until I read your piece, which is so in depth. I was like, wow, how have I not known who this guy is? So for our listeners who may have been like me, can you sort of lay out the basics, first of all, of who Rep Garcia is?
Yes. So Rep Garcia was formerly the mayor of Long Beach, California. He ran for Congress for the first time and was elected in 2018. And so he's still fairly new, but he's already made quite a reputation for himself within the party. He was selected for the, I can't remember offhand what the position was, but basically he was number 2 to Catherine Clark, who's the number 2 Democrat in the House. And it's a very high profile position, basically like leading policy development and the Democratic caucus within the House. So for especially somebody who's so new to Congress, this was a pretty big deal. And he's been, I don't know if you guys watch like cable news, but he's been kind of an omnipresent figure in the media, Rep Garcia. He's been everywhere. He's been all over social media. So I thought it was a good time to highlight some of the efforts to push back against this administration by Democrats in Congress, especially because there's been so much criticism of House and Senate Democrats for not doing enough.
So that's where I was like, wait, I guess I have cut back my consumption of cable news significantly since the election. I can't. But I was like, I the times I have caught it, I'm like, I may recognize him. I'm not sure, but he has been very vocal, also I should know, member of the community. But he's particularly going after Democratic leadership in Congress, particularly one senator.
So he really took issue with the Democratic Minority Leader Chuck Schumer's decision to go along with the Republican budget. I will say though, the kind of tone and tenor of our conversation about Democrats he was very understanding of the fact that people are really trying to do their best, and that not everybody agrees on what approach to take and everything. But he wants to see, I think, more risk-taking among Democratic members of Congress.
How does he define that? Because he thought that we should, like everyone in the House did, not vote for that funding bill.
Yes, so that's certainly one example. Another one that we kind of actually went into the weeds with a bit was this idea that Democrats should not be afraid to appear on Fox News or other conservative media. You have to take the conversation where the people are, and if people are tuning into Fox, Democrats need to be on Fox. That's kind of his position.
And kind of following Buttigieg's lead. It's interesting to me that the gays are the ones going after Fox News, are willing to at least talk to those audiences. He's been known for being provocative, as I learned from your piece. I mean, there was the thing that literally laughed out loud as I was reading it in your article of him congressional testimony, and he's like, I'm going to show I don't know if I can say this, FCC, a blank pic, and then behind him a picture of Elon Musk shows up.
That's right.
Talking about how Musk is going after Social Security and Medicare. So I don't want to necessarily call them stunts, but he is trying to make these, I don't know, is he trying to make viral moments, but he is trying to use media in a way that's different than sort of your traditional Democratic leadership.
I think it's totally fair to call it a stunt. I think he would probably use that word. He and he's not alone. I mean, certainly you have like Jasmine Crockett's been really out there, other members, but he is certainly not afraid to make waves and be controversial. And as he said when he revealed the blank pic during a congressional hearing, he referenced the fact that Marjorie Taylor Greene did the same thing, except that she actually did show an explicit photo of Hunter Biden. So
what?
It was a callback to that kind of viral moment. But I think it kind of speaks to the way that Rep Garcia sees things. I mean, he's really into popular culture, and he's very focused on winning the war of attention, and he feels that Democrats have ceded a lot of ground there.
When you talk to him, did the ownership of the media ecosystem come up? about how it basically, I mean, like fascists and MAGA own all the social media, the major ones anyway, and they have a pretty good thumb on the scale when it comes to corporate media. I mean, did he also mention that in terms of, yes, creating these moments, but also how do we address who owns media in this country?
No, that's a conversation that I would very much like to have. However, I think that's a really it's a critically important question, especially, we saw a little bit of convergence between the Democrats and the Republicans, maybe within the last 10 years, about the need to break up these dominant tech monopolies. And it's kind of unclear, I think, at least so far, where the Trump administration is landing on the question, especially because, as you mentioned, many of these owners of these tech platforms have ingratiated themselves with the White House and with the president. So
I'm not gonna. There's so many headlines that I can't get over. But watching the USA Today's headline this week of like, "Oopsie daisy, who hasn't included someone in a group chat?" I'm like, why have PR doctors when you can have the USA Today headline writers do the PR spin for you?
Right.
That's quite funny. I had not seen that headline. I've been kind of joking all week though that I can relate because I also leave big important decisions often up to my group chat. So
yeah. Well, who doesn't? Yeah.
Do you include when and how U.S. fighter pilots are going to?
Yeah.
It's usually not a part of what I'm talking about generally now.
Can you break down then, because he's been doing a lot of media, good media. How does Representative Garcia then? What is his take on how the resistance should begin to manifest? Like, what beyond the media part of it? What was he suggesting that we need to be going in terms of a vision for the Democratic Party?
So, he and I found some common ground and that we both love Ezra Klein's podcast. I don't know if you guys are familiar for the New York Times. He has a new book coming out called Abundance, and it's about this idea that the Democratic Party has not shown people that it can make government work for them. So the two examples that he leans heavily on are in California, where Democrats are governing. Working class people are fleeing those large cities because they can no longer afford to live there. Yep. And that is not acceptable if you are the party of working people. And this issue with housing, the issue with how difficult, expensive, and impossible it is to build anything, any kind of infrastructure, the high-speed rail that was supposed to connect Los Angeles and San Francisco. So Rep. Garcia was really adamant about that kind of reform within the party to make sure that there's less of a focus on process and more of a focus on outcome.
Was that, is that then an extension, like do more of the Inflation Reduction Act, the big infrastructure bill that Biden had? Or is that, in my mind, when I think of abundance and the big infrastructure, like that to me was kind of a big.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. The problem, however, with the IRA was that a lot of the actual programs that would result in actual construction and things that people can actually see and ribbon cutting ceremonies and all of that is all timelines like 5 years out, 10 years out. So people are not seeing any real evidence of that. A lot of the focus was also on climate change. So that's not exactly something that's super tangible in that sense. But yes, I think that's a part of it. I think that it's also, though, like stripping away some of the environmental protections and other laws that were designed to facilitate more equity in the process that end up actually just slowing things down and making things more expensive and impossible to do. So it kind of has to go hand in hand with like reforming existing regulations and also doing big things like the IRA, as you mentioned.
Right. Housing, as I learned in your article, is a big issue for Representative Garcia, and he founded the YIMBY, which is the Yes in My Backyard.
That's right, exactly.
Office. And I think that's because Vice President Harris was trying to run on housing last November, and just no one seemed to pay attention, and suddenly everyone cares about housing. But okay, leave that to the side. How is Representative Garcia and the caucus specifically trying to improve those housing options for folks?
So I think the YIMBY caucus just got off the ground in November. And so I don't think I don't want to speak out of turn here, but I don't think there's been too much action yet. I believe they've met a couple of times. I think it's worth noting that it's a bipartisan caucus. And yeah, as you said, absolutely, this has been a priority for Democrats, but also for Republicans, I would say, bringing down the cost of housing. There's a lot of disagreement about how to get there with the Democrats. But nevertheless, I think that's a focus on the right as well. This idea that housing costs everywhere are expensive. There's a crisis in Southern California. There's a housing crisis in Montana. It's a nationwide problem.
It's so weird to me to hear when Republicans actually care about an issue that folks are dealing with, as opposed to, furries defecating in schools. And you're like, that is not a thing. And they're passing legislation about it. So I always feel this cognitive dissonance. I'm like, oh, wait, we're actually talking about a real issue with real policy.
And listen, like I was mentioning about antitrust and breaking up the big companies, like you had somebody like Ken Buck who just retired from Congress, but Republican, very, very conservative Republican from Colorado. He was a very, very adamant and effective communicator and advocate for stronger antitrust enforcement. So you do see some of that from the Republican side.
From time to time.
Yeah.
I do want to thank you for that article, and I really encourage folks to go on there because it is an absolutely spectacular profile of a representative.
Thank you.
I haven't read something so in depth on a elected official in a long time. So it was such a treat to read that. I also want to touch base on, because you've also been covering the trans-military ban. And there was an injunction on Monday in a case where the DOD was trying to expel 2 trans service members, and it was blocked. Can you tell us a little bit about the update on that case?
Yes. So we are eagerly awaiting a decision in that case. So it gets a little bit complicated. So the case was filed to the U.S. District Court for the District of Columbia here in D.C. And they wanted to revise the complaint to get a preliminary injunction that would halt specifically the separation of these 2 plaintiffs in the case from the United States Armed Forces, right? So in order to do that, they had to file that in a different court in New Jersey. So that's what we actually just got on Monday, was from the New Jersey court, and the injunction is will be in place until the litigation in DC is complete. So all of that to say, it seems like the judge in DC, I know it's super complicated, but it seems like the judge in DC is very, skeptical of the case that the administration is presenting for why they need to have this policy in the first place. And she's dedicated a lot of time to highlighting the heroism and selfless sacrifice of these trans military service members.
I'm heartened to see that a lot of the judges in all of these cases seem to be very skeptical of the arguments that the Trump administration is making. We're going to fit in a break here, but we're going to have more with White House correspondent for the Washington Blade, Christopher Kane. Stay tuned. Lots to get to here on The Gailey Show.
Connections Radio Show is all about tapping into our hardwired hunger to connect. We examine meaningful connections to ourselves, our community, and the world around us. By opening the door to innovative insights by a wide variety of interesting guests, we'll make the connections to something bigger than ourselves. Join me, Lori Fitz, your host of Connections Radio Show, and together we'll make the connections. Saturday mornings at 9 a.m. on AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota.
Hi, this is Laura. Listen to Food Freedom Radio every Saturday at 8 a.m. or anytime via podcast. Our individual health is connected to the health of each other and connected to the health of the earth. We know the problems with the dominant food system: climate change, deadening soils, nitrates in the water, factory farming, injustice, concentration of wealth. How do we both as individuals and as a community step up and support a living food system which honors the earth? Tune to Food Freedom Radio every Saturday at 8 a.m. and remember to support your independent farmers.
This is Chad, owner of AM 950. I want to tell you about a better, more environmentally friendly way to care for your lawn with Natural Lawn. Natural Lawn has been treating Minnesota lawns for more than 20 years with organic-based natural products that feed the soil without unnecessary chemicals. That means an envy-worthy, healthier lawn that's safer for your family and your furry friends. Natural Lawn has no contracts and is 100% satisfaction guaranteed. So let Natural Lawn handle your lawn care so you can enjoy your lawn. More at naturallawn.com.
Minneapolis should be a place where small businesses thrive, not struggle under red tape. Right now, it's too hard for local entrepreneurs to get started and grow. I'll work to simplify business permits, cut unnecessary regulations, and boost local investment in our economy. I'm Shelley Medore, and I believe small businesses are the backbone of our community. Caucus for me on April 8th, and let's make Minneapolis a place where businesses succeed. Learn more at shelleymedore.org.
This advertisement was paid for by candidate Shelley Medore for Ward 2.
Progressive change doesn't just happen. It takes dedication and a lot of hard work. 25 years ago, the Data Bank pioneered a new generation of software tools for progressive organizations here in Minnesota. Since then, thousands of organizations have used the Data Bank to create progressive change. Today, the Data Bank continues to help progressive organizations like AM 950. To have the Data Bank help your organization build capacity and create more change, text CHANGE to 612-540-0500 or go to thedatabank.com. The Data Bank, a quarter century of dedication and hard work for progressive organizations.
Some days I feel so down I can barely get out of bed. Is this depression?
I feel so tense and worried all the time. Is this anxiety?
Check up on your mental health. Take an online mental health screening at mentalhealthmn.org. Mental Health Minnesota has online mental health screenings, resources, support, and connections to treatment and crisis services. All anonymous, confidential, free of charge, and open 7 days a week. Mental Health Minnesota is here for you. mentalhealthmn.org. Sponsored by Mental Health Minnesota, the Minnesota Broadcasters Association, and this station.
Welcome back to the Gailey Show. I'm your host, John Parker. Jim Pound's executive producer. In studio with me, we are talking with Christopher Kane, the White House correspondent for the Washington Blade. You can read all of his reporting and all of the news from the Washington Blade at washingtonblade.com. Christopher, I'd like to, speaking of housing, if we can turn to your article that came out yesterday about HUD funding, so housing and urban development funding that is affecting organizations being able to provide temporary housing, crisis housing, and homeless housing to folks. I mean, there's a lot actually in here. So can you talk about, it's $3.6 billion of federal grants that we're talking about right now. So can you walk us through what's happening here with this?
That's right. So, you may recall a few weeks ago when we were talking with each other about the DEI executive orders that came out and the fact that the administration didn't very clearly define what DEI is, so it makes it really hard to actually create policy or like launch any kind of enforcement action. In a similar way, this has also stymied the disbursement of $3.6 billion in grants from HUD because the administration is insisting that the award recipients are in compliance with the executive orders targeting DEI, targeting transgender people, and also immigrants. So as a result, basically, there's been this back and forth with the contracts between the award recipients and the agency HUD, because you have courts that are issuing preliminary injunctions, striking down parts of the DEI executive order. So that was edited out of the contracts, and there's just been this back and forth. And in the meantime, we are now more than 3 weeks past the deadline that statutorily they were required to actually distribute the money. And as a result, these organizations that work with many of the poorest, most vulnerable communities in the country are left in desperate straits to try to find the money to cover their programs.
And desperate in terms of even the organizations could shut down?
That's right. That's right. This is existential potentially for these organizations, depending on, you have to think about, like, if you're an organization that exists to provide housing for example, like LGBTQ youth, and then you can't comply with the executive order saying that you only recognize two genders and they're fixed at birth, that's an existential threat to your survival as a nonprofit.
And for folks who are listening, the LGBTQ youth are overrepresented in the population of people who are houseless. And by overrepresented, I mean what you would expect them is to be like 10%, 13% of the overall houseless, individuals under 18 years old, and they can be upwards of 50%. of folks who are houseless, and so this is critical. But also, I read here in your reporting that nearly 1 in 3 trans Americans have experienced homelessness at least at some point in their life. So this is having crucial impacts for the LGBTQ community as well. And there's also stuff in here about sanctuary cities.
That's right. So that was another clause in the contracts. But was that the recipients have to agree to the executive order on immigration that targets basically like Democratic-run states and localities and their policies with respect to immigration enforcement.
And this is a situation, if these organizations are threatened by, existentially threatened by the lack of this funding, court cases take so long.
Right.
So there could become a situation where the organizations have to fold before the funding will even get resolved in the courts, and then there won't be anybody to receive the funding anyway to actually do the work.
That's exactly right.
It's just all of this feels like a lose-lose situation, because even when they get the funding, there's still the threat of it being taken away.
It's kind of a constant theme that we're seeing across what the government now is doing with, for example, the cuts that Elon and Doge have been doing, the interruption of funding streams. That's really hard to repair. It takes a lot of time.
I don't even understand how folks are supposed to function right now if you rely on any type of federal funding. So for these specifically, these grants, what is the next step in the process?
So it's not exactly clear. There were new contracts that went out last, I think the 19th, right? So it was last week. And beyond that, I'm really not sure. I think it's going to become a very like individualistic assessment that these groups do. Like, can we sign this contract? What does that look like? I really don't know.
Yeah. Well, I know that we can trust that you'll keep us abreast of the situation. Something I also wanted to highlight is actually the passing of, that you reported on a week ago, the passing of former GOP Senator Alan Simpson, who was a long-time supporter of LGBTQ rights.
Yeah, I was really not familiar, I'm embarrassed to say, honestly, with his career. What's that?
I wasn't either until I read this. I was like, what?
Oh, good. That makes me feel better. So it was really interesting to learn about him. It seems like he's also supported not just LGBTQ rights, but also things like, the documentary about the murder of Matthew Shepard, and, plays and works of artistic expression about like the Lavender Scare and, discrimination against gay people and, the 20th century in America. It just seems like he was a really interesting man, and just consistent throughout his career in public life and after leaving public life, in his beliefs in fairness and equality. So,
well, our condolences to the Simpson family. And that is the time that we have today. Christopher, thank you for joining us again. We hope that you continue to feel better.
Oh, thank you, guys. Great to see you as always.
We are including a link in our show notes. You can also go to am950radio.com, look for the description of today's episode, March 26th. You can find a link to read all of Christopher's reporting in real time. And you can also go to the Washington Blade's website to support their journalism, sign up for their weekly newsletter, and just read all the great stuff that they're providing to us, washingtonblade.com. That is all for us here today. Please stay tuned for the Matt McNeil Show, which comes up next. After that, Native Roots Radio at 5 p.m. Until we'll be back again tomorrow at 2 p.m. And until then, keep it queer, America.
Tune in this Saturday morning from 7 to 8 a.m. right here on AM 950 for the Gardening with Joy and Holly radio show from